I still have 3 more movies that I've seen in March that I haven't done reviews for, and I have 2 more movies that I'm seeing sometime this week. But first, let's try to get through the movies I've seen so far. Let's try to get through these 3, and we'll start off with the Belko Experiment. I believe I only ever saw 1 trailer for the Belko Experiment. No, I've seen it twice. I saw it one time online when it first came out, and I saw the trailer for it in a movie theater at one point. I can't even remember which movie I saw it in front of. It might have been in front of Incarnate. Anyway, basically I've only seen the trailer twice, and it felt like a really fun, simple premise. And it pretty much is. The movie is about a government company that is working in the middle of nowhere in Colombia. It's been working there for about a year, and we're not quite sure what this company does. At least it's definitely not made clear within the movie, purposefully.
Belko is a non-profit organization that facilitates American companies in South America.
One normal day of work suddenly becomes a little suspiciously strange. Certain employees are not allowed in the building. There's new heavily armed guards surrounding the building. And suddenly, someone on the intercom tells all the employees that, hey, all of you must kill 2 people in the building. Any 2 people, you gotta kill them. Obviously, the 80-some employees working in the building at that time think it's all a practical joke and start wondering what the hell's going on. But then shit gets real as the whole building is sealed off and people's heads start exploding. Turns out the demands are real, and now there's a new demand.
There are currently 80 of you in the building. In 2 hours, we want 30 of you dead.
30 people must die, otherwise 60 people will die instead. And now the rest of the movie is pretty much our main characters and our group of ensemble cast trying to figure out what they're going to do, the moral dilemmas of killing 30 people to save the rest of the group, or not killing those people and 60 people dying, and some people trying to find non-violent ways to solve the problem, while other people are thinking a little bit more logically and maybe on edge, but sort of reasonably, hey, we can save the lives of several people if we just kill 30 people. And then it eventually becomes an awesome, all-out, crazy killing spree of a movie. Now I do have to say the movie has a very simple but pretty original premise. I mean, it's not ultimately original. I'm sure people can look at the premise and think, oh, this is like a horror Hunger Games, or oh, this is like Battle Royale, or movies of that nature. And you're not wrong in thinking about that, but ultimately it is slightly different, at least until it gets to the 3rd act. And while Hunger Games is trying to be more social commentary and Battle Royale is trying to do the dynamics of cliques and schools and all that kind of stuff, I feel that the Belko Experiment is not trying to be satirical, is not trying to be really smart, is not trying to have some big, deeper meaning in it like those other 2 films I mentioned. Instead, it feels like it's just a fun, simple premise that's bloody, gory, and just wants to entertain people. And I do have to say, myself, my sister, and my cousin, we all saw the movie, and we were all thoroughly entertained by the film. Now, overall, it is a very big ensemble cast. There's a lot of characters, some of which are familiar faces, some of which are fairly big, but not big enough to be like A-list stars. In fact, I'm going to list off the actors in this movie that might be the biggest in this movie. You got Michael Rooker, and if you're a comic book fan, if you're a fan of the Marvel movies, you'll know him as Yondu in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's been in plenty of other horror movies as well, and a lot of B movies. Josh Brenner is an actor that keeps popping up in all these comedy movies I've been seeing lately. John C. McGinley? I don't know how to pronounce that last name. I guess he was big in Scrubs. I never even saw that series, but I know him from a lot of crazy, unstable, loony characters in comedies and horror and action films. And our main character is played by John Gallagher Jr., who you might know from 10 Cloverfield Lane. Yeah, he was the other guy in the bunker not John Goodman and not our main girl. Or you might remember him as the bad guy in Hush, because he's in that movie as well. So yeah, definitely not an A-list cast, but a lot of people that have a lot of familiar faces and have been in a lot of different movies here and there. I have to say, all the acting was solid. There was nothing to write home about, nothing to say, wow, that was a great performance, but nothing that I would say is bad or terrible or even just fine. I think everyone did a solid, good job. Personally, I thought everyone did a solid, good job and helped me care for the characters, because these characters, when you deal with an ensemble cast, especially as huge as this movie, they tend to be sort of stereotypical characters or characters with not a lot of depth in them, which makes sense. But the actors did a good enough job, a solid enough job, and an entertainingly enough job that I did care about several of the characters. Hell, even some of the characters that don't even have lines and just sort of there in the background and keep popping up every so often, I still cared about those characters too. And trust me, there is a lot of characters in this movie that only have a few lines and is just there for the background and are always there when something's happening, something big is happening, and you're just sort of wondering, okay, when are these characters going to die? And I did find myself rooting for some of these characters even though I knew pretty much all of them are going to die. If I were to pinpoint certain characters that I enjoyed, certain actors that I enjoyed the performances of, I'll list off a few. First off, I like John Gallagher Jr.'s acting in this movie and his character. He's our main character. He's the one that actually goes through a character development, which ultimately means a change happens within this character, and a change definitely happens within this character, that's for sure. Now I can see him as being a bland character, a bland main character for some people, but he's really the moral compass in this movie. He's the one that believes in all good, believes in not killing people. He's the one gunning for a non-violent solution, and he'll go out of his way to try to do his best and even self-sacrifice himself if it means saving the rest of the people. So ultimately, he is our hero, he's our good guy, but he is kind of flawed because he does make decisions where it's like, okay, I understand him making that because, and his choices are due to the fact that he believes the good in everyone and believes everyone should be saved, but he thinks about his morals so much that he doesn't think about what might be the logical and the more reasonable thing to do, and so he can come off as a stupid, bland character to some. Personally, I liked his character and I like the change that happens within the movie towards the end. It's a very drastic change, but one that makes sense given the situation and the things that he goes through in this frickin' movie. Tony Goldwyn plays our pretty much main antagonist of the film. He definitely seems to be like the CEO of the company or one of the higher-ups, definitely the one in charge. And when the movies first started off, I thought, okay, he's going to be our main character, he's going to be the lead, he's going to be the person that holds everyone together. But instead, he's pretty much the main antagonist of the movie, which surprised me.
Please, stop putting words in my mouth.
I'm sorry, but that sounds to me like you're saying you want to kill innocent people.
No, I am not saying that at all. I'm saying that we need to discuss all our options.
Well, we understand, but we are not going to entertain the option of killing people.
What do you got, a mouse in your pocket there, Melch?
Mr. Norris has a point.
Absolutely he does. Look, we have to think about what is best for the whole group. Right, look, I know no one wants to actually think about sacrificing 30 lives, but if it means saving the lives of an additional...
It does not matter what the circumstances are. We do not have the right to take innocent human lives. Yeah, that's it. And besides that, there are practical reasons.
Like what?
You can't really think that they're gonna let anybody live to tell about this.
I did like his character in the movie because you can understand what he's going through, you can understand the reasoning he makes, where it's like, hey, we just killed 30 people, we saved the lives of 30 other people, how hard of a decision is that to make? So honestly, I can see people rooting for this character even though he's the main antagonist. Sometimes the better villains are villains that you can understand the reasonings to, understand the motives, despite you disagreeing with the actions. John C. McGinley is also really great in this movie. He's probably the most intimidating character of the film. He's the creepiest, he's the most unsettling, he's the most unstable, and the most violent, and I loved his performance. But I've also seen a lot of movies where he's an unstable person, or he's very intimidating, or just plain creepy and perverted. And so it felt like he was playing those types of characters, just heightened to a more disturbing level. I also like Melone Diaz. She was actually pretty good. I mean, she plays the newcomer, she's the new employee, and she's sort of hiding the most of the time. She's the one that's in the background that no one discovers. She's the sneaky person. She's not really trying to kill anyone, trying to save people too. And I almost thought I knew what the twist was going to be at the end, but then the movie proved me wrong with her. And I'm not going to explain it because it would be more spoilerish. But like I said, I think all the acting was solid in this film. Not even the annoying stoner character got on my nerves. Yes, throughout the whole movie I was thinking someone needs to kill this character because he's putting everyone on edge and doing terrible things that he thinks are conspiracy theories, like throwing out all the water and everything. But he was a character that never actually got on my nerves and never annoyed me. Now ultimately, this isn't a movie that's trying to be smart. It's not trying to be something grand or great. It's just trying to make a solid B movie that is entertaining. And for the most part, I found it very entertaining. Even with that said, I think the worst thing you can do going into this movie is thinking it's just going to be chaotic fun through the entirety. And to be honest, the only chaotic moment where it felt like it was really being fun and the type of film that most people want it to be is the third act, when everyone goes on a killing spree and everyone is out for themselves. That's when it got crazy, that's when it got fun, that's when it got brutal, that's what most horror fans were probably expecting the entire movie to be like. And while that is fun, I do like that it restrained itself through the first 2/3 of the movie, where it slowed down and got into the moral dilemmas of the character, where it tried to play it off as a more serious film, or at least semi-serious, because there is some dark humor within the film. So I liked how the movie held back its carnage and its chaos until the final act of the film, when it goes batshit crazy. And don't worry, you still get some really brutal kills within the first 2/3 of the movie. It's just most of the brutal, fun kills is at the third act. Some people don't like their B movies to have some seriousness in it, but I felt that a semi-serious plot with some crazy, fun, twisted humor can go a long way for me. It makes it feel like it's not just some big, dumb B movie that's just pure entertainment. It is that, but it feels like it's done by some smarter people that know how to restrain themselves, that know how to hold off and then have a big epic climax. It feels like it shows there is some craft to this film. Now what I really enjoyed was the humor of this film, not just some of the lines that are said and some funny moments or some satire that might happen. No, there's some really dark, twisted humor in this film, and I feel that only horror movie fans that love bloody, gory things can really understand that, because it's trying to be funny by how dark, gritty, and how bloody some of this stuff can get. There's definitely some really dark, twisted irony, some things that really punch you in the gut as you realize, oh crap, that's what happened? I can't go into detail without spoiling those types of stuff, but there's moments in it that I just really found really gratifying. And it's just like, holy crap, I love that the film went there. And I have to say, the blood, the gore, a lot of it does seem practical. I'm sure there are definitely some blood splatter that is CGI, but when it comes to head bashing and head exploding and all these crazy stuff, a lot of it looked really practical and really good. It's hard to come by sometimes with a horror movie, a big budget horror movie, or one that is mainstream, to actually have some practical effects now and then. And sometimes it's just gratifying to see an actual practical effect of a person's head exploding or a person's head being bashed in and stuff like that. I know that sounds twisted and crazy, but sometimes that's good in a horror film versus CGI explosions. I feel that all the practical and the CGI really worked in this movie. The only CGI that didn't was this really horrible, terrible green screen when a person is pulled out of the building. I won't spoil it, it's towards the end, but someone's pulled out of the building, and you see the building in the background, and that whole green screen looked pretty damn awful. Other than that, everything looked really good and visually stunning. Ultimately, there's not a lot I can say about the Belko Experiment other than that I just had a fun time and I found it to be a very enjoyable, dark, twisted horror comedy. Again, it's not striving to be something great, and if that's something you wish the movie would have, then you might not enjoy this movie. This is more of a movie that's just to be enjoyed, entertained, and for dark, twisted people that love dark, twisted comedy. And even then, a lot of that isn't until the third act of the film, so you might find the film a little boring until it gets to that third act. Ultimately, I had a fun time, but I can't really give it an amazing score because it's not an amazing movie. It's just a fun movie, and sometimes that's enough to get it a pretty decent score, or actually, it is rounding up a little bit because I think the actual score that I have on my computer, on my file, is like 3.8 something or something like that. But for this review, I round up or down to the nearest whole or half, and it's closer to 4 stars. So I'm going to give the Belko Experiment 4 stars. It was just a really fun movie for me. So, did you see the Belko Experiment? What did you think about it? Go ahead and comment below. And if you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe and check out my movie reviews of 2015, 2016, or 2017. As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.